Have you ever looked at Singapore and Malaysia and thought, these two countries seem like siblings who took different paths in life? Same weather, same food, same festivals, yet two completely different worlds. Today we're diving deep into one fascinating question. Are Singaporeans and Malaysians actually related? Because once you look beneath the surface, beneath the borders, the passports, and the accents, you'll find a story that's bigger than politics. It's a story about shared roots, family ties, and how one nation became two. So sit back, relax, and let's travel through time. From ancient kingdoms to modern skyscrapers, to uncover the truth. Chapter 1, The Same Beginning. Long before modern maps and borderlines, Singapore and Malaysia were part of the same living, breathing world. One defined not by politics, but by people. The Malay Peninsula and the island of Singapore shared the same seas, the same winds, and the same heartbeat of trade and culture. Boats carrying spices, silk, and stories sailed freely between their shores. Fishermen cast their nets in the same waters. Families and merchants moved without barriers, united by language, faith, and kinship. This shared heritage traces back to ancient Malay empires such as the Srivijaya Kingdom, 7th and 13th centuries, which ruled over vast stretches of the Malay archipelago, and later the Malacca Sultanate, 15th century, which became a powerful hub of trade in Islam. Both empires saw the Straits of Malacca, including Singapore's coastline, as their lifeline, connecting India, Arabia, and China in one of the world's busiest maritime routes. The people of this region spoke the same Malay language, followed similar customs, and celebrated the same festivals. They shared a love for community gatherings, storytelling, and food. Dishes like nasi lemak, satay, and rendang weren't national recipes yet, but shared family meals. Religion, too, was a uniting force. Islam spread peacefully through trade and kinship, shaping values of respect, generosity, and humility that still define both nations today. So before there was a Malaysia or a Singapore, there was simply a homeland, a vast cultural tapestry woven from the same roots. They weren't just close, they were one extended family living under the same tropical sky, long before anyone thought to draw a border between them. Chapter 2, The British Connection. The arrival of the British Empire marked a turning point in the shared story of Singapore and Malaysia. By the early 1800s, the British recognized the immense value of Southeast Asia, not just for its natural resources like tin, rubber, and spices, but also for its strategic position between India and China. Whoever controlled the trade routes through the Straits of Malacca controlled the lifeline of global commerce. In 1819, Sir Stamford Raffles landed on the island of Singapore and struck an agreement with the local rulers to establish a British trading post. What began as a small colonial outpost quickly transformed into one of the busiest ports in the world. Ships from China, India, Arabia, and Europe began arriving daily, carrying goods, people, and ideas. Singapore became a melting pot. Chinese traders setting up shops, Indian workers building roads, Malay fishermen supplying fresh catch, and Arab merchants spreading Islam and trade networks. Across the Causeway, the Malay Peninsula, the heart of what would become Malaysia, developed differently. The British organized the federated and unfederated Malay states, focusing on tin mining and large rubber plantations. Towns like Penang, Malacca, and Kuala Lumpur grew, but life remained largely rural and community-centered, compared to Singapore's fast-paced urban growth. Despite these emerging differences, people on both sides still felt like one. The Johor-Singapore connection remained fluid. Families visited each other without restriction, marriages crossed the straits, and cultural practices flowed freely. The same Malay language echoed in markets and mosques. So while British rule divided their economies and set different paths for progress, it couldn't erase their shared roots. At this stage in history, the bond between Singapore and Malaysia wasn't just strong, it was unbreakable. Chapter 3, The Moment. Everything changed. By the early 1960s, the winds of independence were sweeping through Asia. The British Empire was crumbling, and nations long under colonial rule were finally reclaiming their freedom. Out of this historic shift came a bold vision to unite several territories under one flag. And so, in 1963, the Federation of Malaysia was formed, bringing together the Malay Peninsula, Sabah, Sarawak, and Singapore. For many, it felt like a reunion of long-lost family members. Singapore and Malaysia shared the same roots, languages, and heritage. And at first, the union was filled with hope. There was talk of unity, progress, and strength in numbers. One nation with many cultures working together toward prosperity. The new Malaysian flag fluttered with pride, symbolizing this fresh start. But beneath the excitement, cracks began to form. Singapore, led by Lee Kuan Yew, had a vision of equality for all races, a Malaysian Malaysia, where every citizen, regardless of ethnicity, would share equal rights. Meanwhile, the federal government in Kuala Lumpur emphasized policies that prioritized the Malay majority. These ideological differences deepened tensions between the two governments. Economically, Singapore's fast-growing trade-based economy clashed with Malaysia's protectionist policies. Social unrest began to rise, and in 1964, racial riots shook Singapore. The dream of unity was quickly unraveling. Finally, on August 9, 1965, in an extraordinary act, Malaysia's parliament voted to expel Singapore from the Federation, a peaceful separation unprecedented in modern history. Singapore suddenly found itself alone, small and uncertain. It was like watching two siblings part ways, not out of hatred, but out of painful necessity. Overnight, a family became neighbors, and a shared dream became two separate destinies. Chapter 4, Two Paths, One Family Tree. After the separation in 1965, Singapore and Malaysia set out on two completely different journeys, like siblings who grew up in the same home but chose different ways of life. Malaysia, under the leadership of Tunku Abdul Rahman, focused on building a nation grounded in its Malay roots. It sought to protect the position of the Malay majority while ensuring harmony among its Chinese and Indian minorities. Islam was made the official religion, and the Malay language became a unifying symbol of national identity. Malaysia's approach emphasized culture, tradition, and the balance between modernization and heritage. Singapore, on the other hand, had no natural resources, no vast land, and no guarantee of survival. Under Lee Kuan Yew, it took a different path, one built on discipline, meritocracy, and diversity. The island embraced multiculturalism, treating all races and religions equally under the law. English became the working language to bridge communities, and efficiency became part of its national character. In just a few decades, Singapore transformed into one of the world's most advanced city-states, small in size but massive in influence. Yet even as their systems diverged, their hearts remained intertwined. Families didn't stop visiting across the Johor-Singapore Causeway. They simply brought passports instead of baskets. During Hari Raya, cousins from both sides still gathered to share food, laughter, and memories. Singaporeans continued to cross over for Malaysia's famous durians and affordable shopping, while Malaysians traveled south for jobs, education, and new opportunities. The two nations may have chosen different routes, but their roots still grow from the same soil. The border that divides them on paper remains in truth just a bridge, one that connects more than it separates. Chapter 5. The Languages of Connection. If there's one thing that instantly reveals how connected Singaporeans and Malaysians still are, it's the way they speak. Language is more than just words. It's emotion, rhythm, and personality. And in both countries, it reflects a shared heart. Walk through the bustling streets of Kuala Lumpur, the markets of Johor Bahru, or the food courts of Singapore, and you'll hear a beautiful symphony of tongues blending seamlessly. English flows into Malay, Malay into Mandarin, Mandarin into Tamil, all mixed with a touch of humor and warmth. Locals switch between languages effortlessly, often in the same sentence, creating a colorful linguistic blend that feels uniquely homegrown. And then there's the legendary la, can la, don't like that la, steady la. It's not just a word, it's a feeling, a soft exclamation that adds friendliness, casualness, and identity. This little syllable crosses borders with ease, uniting two nations through sound and style. This shared Singlish-Manglish dialect isn't something you'll find in textbooks. It was born naturally through decades of coexistence among Malays, Chinese, Indians, and countless others. It carries the warmth of friendship, the playfulness of everyday life, and the comfort of being understood. Beyond grammar or accent, it's a language of belonging, proof that communication is shaped by connection, not politics. Whether it's a hawker in Penang joking with a customer or a barista in Singapore laughing over a cup of kopi, their words echo the same rhythm of life. So yes, borders may divide nations, but the way they speak still reminds us. Singaporeans and Malaysians are family, just speaking different dialects of the same heart. Chapter 6. The food that unites them. If there's one thing that can instantly dissolve the border between Singapore and Malaysia, it's food. In this part of the world, food isn't just nourishment. It's identity, pride, and memory all served on a single plate. And when you look closely, you'll see that the dishes both nations proudly claim as their own are actually born from the same roots. Take Hainanese chicken rice, for instance. Singapore calls it a national treasure, while Malaysia insists its version is more authentic. But both trace their origins back to Chinese immigrants from Hainan, who brought the recipe generations ago. The same goes for laksa, a creamy, spicy noodle soup that varies slightly by region, richer in Penang, more coconut-based in Singapore, yet unmistakably part of the same culinary family. And then there's nasi lemak, fragrant coconut rice served with sambal, peanuts, anchovies, and boiled egg. Malaysia may call it its national dish, but Singaporeans eat it with the same devotion, from school canteens to midnight hawker stalls. Whether it's char kway teow, satay, or roti prata, these dishes share the same DNA. Recipes that traveled across the Causeway long before passports did. In every bite, there's history. Malay kampungs, Chinese kopitiams, Indian spice traders, and Peranakan families all contributing flavors that shape both nations' palates. Even today, crossing the Causeway feels like stepping into a familiar kitchen. The sense of sambal and soy sauce blending in the air. Because in the end, it's not just about whose version is better. It's about shared memories. The taste of home that reminds both Malaysians and Singaporeans of where their story began. Chapter 7. The people behind the borders. Behind every political boundary and national flag, there are people, and their stories tell a truth that maps never can. The bond between Singapore and Malaysia lives strongest in the hearts of their people. In fact, a significant part of Singapore's population today can trace their roots back to Malaysia. Generations ago, many families moved freely across the Causeway when it wasn't a checkpoint, but just a bridge between homes. Many of Singapore's early leaders, entrepreneurs, and visionaries were either born in Malaysia or descended from Malaysian families. Their shared heritage helped shape Singapore's identity as a multicultural, hardworking, and family-oriented society. Even today, thousands of Malaysians cross the Johor-Singapore Causeway every single day. Teachers, nurses, engineers, and small business owners, all contributing to Singapore's heartbeat while keeping their families rooted in Johor or beyond. For many of them, identity isn't a single word. It's a blend. They'll tell you proudly, "I'm Malaysian by birth, Singaporean by journey." They celebrate Hari Raya, Chinese New Year, and Deepavali on both sides of the border, often spending mornings in Johor and evenings in Singapore. It's more than migration. It's love. A love that endures through time, traffic jams, and border queues. These people don't see two nations. They see one extended home, one where opportunity lives in Singapore and family warmth thrives in Malaysia. And that's something no government policy or political separation can change. Because when hearts are connected by history and kinship, no border can truly keep them apart. Chapter 8. Rivalry or Reflection. Like all siblings who grew up together, Singapore and Malaysia share a bond filled with teasing, competition, and deep unspoken affection. Their relationship today feels less like that of rivals and more like reflections of each other. Two nations that grew from the same roots but blossomed in different ways. You see it everywhere, in playful online debates about who makes the best nasi lemak, who has the cleaner city, or which country's football team reigns supreme. Malaysians proudly boast, We've got nature, mountains, and islands that take your breath away. And Singaporeans smile and reply, true, but we've got order, innovation, and the best airport in the world. This rivalry is not born from resentment, it's born from recognition. Each side sees a little of itself in the other. Malaysia reminds Singapore of its cultural depth and warmth, while Singapore shows Malaysia what discipline and structure can achieve. They push each other forward, sometimes quietly, sometimes loudly, but always with a sense of kinship. Even governments and businesses reflect this connection. Their economies are interdependent, their people commute daily, and their artists, musicians, and filmmakers often collaborate. Beneath every lighthearted comparison lies a shared respect, the kind that comes from knowing you've walked the same path once before. So when Malaysians and Singaporeans playfully argue over who does it better, it's not a clash. It's a conversation between family. They are mirrors of one another, shaped differently by history, but still bound by memory, culture, and spirit. And in that reflection, both nations see something beautiful, proof that they are two sides of the same story. Chapter 9, Same Culture, Different Vision. Today, the contrast between Malaysia and Singapore is striking. And yet, beneath those differences lies a shared soul that time and politics could never erase. Malaysia stands proud as a nation rich in tradition and diversity. From the rainforests of Borneo to the bustling streets of Kuala Lumpur, it radiates a warmth rooted in community and culture. Life here moves at a gentler pace. Neighbors greet one another, families gather for long weekend feasts, and traditions are preserved with deep pride. Its strength lies in its sense of belonging, a place where identity is built on shared stories, customs, and faith. Singapore, on the other hand, has become a symbol of modern achievement. It may be small on the map, but its influence stretches across the globe. Skyscrapers rise where kampungs once stood, and innovation drives every corner of its economy. Yet behind its futuristic skyline, Singapore still holds fast to its Asian values: discipline, respect, and the belief that hard work can transform lives. Both nations may have chosen different paths, one prioritizing heritage, the other progress, but their cultural heartbeat remains the same. Respect for elders, love for family, and the spirit of community are woven into daily life on both sides. When Chinese New Year, Deepavali, or Hari Raya arrive, the air in both countries fills with the same sounds of laughter, the same aroma of shared meals, and the same joy of reunion. So yes, Singapore's skyline might glitter with glass and steel, while Malaysia's heart beats in its traditions and natural beauty. But together they form two halves of the same Southeast Asian identity: proud, resilient, and deeply human. Chapter 10, The Border That Connects, Not Divides. There's a stretch of concrete and steel that links two nations, the Johor-Singapore Causeway. To most, it's just a bridge, a daily commute, a line on the map separating two countries. But to those who cross it, it's something far more profound, a living symbol of connection. Every single day, more than 300,000 people make that journey. At dawn, streams of Malaysians head south to Singapore for work: teachers, nurses, engineers, and shopkeepers, while others travel north to visit family, attend school, or trade goods. As night falls, the flow reverses. It's a constant rhythm, like the tide, a movement of life that never truly stops. Each car, motorbike, and bus tells a story. A father working in Singapore to provide for his family in Johor, a student commuting for better education, a grandmother visiting her children across the border. Together, they weave an invisible thread of unity that no checkpoint can cut. The causeway may physically divide two lands, but emotionally, it binds them. It's the modern echo of a time when the straits were not a border, but a shared backyard. Even when the bridge closed during the pandemic, the longing to reconnect proved stronger than distance. Families waited, workers prayed, and when the borders reopened, the first crossings weren't just about work. They were reunions filled with tears, hugs, and relief. Because a bridge can carry vehicles, but it also carries memories, love, and hope. You can close it for maintenance or politics, but you can't close the bond of history, kinship, and shared destiny that flows endlessly between Malaysia and Singapore. Two shores, one heartbeat. Chapter 11. The Future of Two Nations. So what lies ahead for Singapore and Malaysia? The story of these two nations is far from over. In fact, a new chapter is quietly unfolding. While the days of political union are long gone, a future built on partnership, not separation, is already taking shape. Today, trade, tourism, and technology connect the two countries more closely than ever. Malaysia supplies Singapore with food, water, and workforce talent. Singapore, in turn, serves as one of Malaysia's largest investors and trading partners. Their economies don't compete as much as they complement each other, one offering space and resources, the other offering innovation and global reach. Beyond business, collaboration is growing in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Cross-border projects like the Rapid Transit System, RTS link, are set to make travel between Johor Bahru and Singapore faster and more convenient, a symbol of modern cooperation built on ancient ties. And perhaps the most hopeful sign comes from the younger generation. Unlike the past, they don't carry the weight of separation or rivalry. They see both countries as parts of a shared cultural universe, connected by language, humor, and history. They collaborate through social media, startups, art, and music, creating bridges far stronger than politics ever could. In many ways, Singapore and Malaysia are proving something powerful, that independence doesn't have to mean isolation. Their future isn't about rewriting the past. It's about transforming shared memories into shared progress. Two nations, two visions, one story still unfolding, rooted in kinship, strengthened by cooperation, and guided by the belief that family, no matter how far apart, always finds its way back together. Chapter 12. What it means for us. Maybe the real question isn't simply, are Singapore and Malaysia related? Because deep down, we already know the answer. The more meaningful question is, what does their story teach us about the world and about ourselves? It teaches us that borders are human inventions, but heritage is eternal. You can draw lines on a map, change flags, and rewrite constitutions, but you can't erase the shared memories of generations who laughed, worked, and dreamed together. Singapore and Malaysia remind us that unity and individuality can coexist, that two nations can walk separate paths without losing the rhythm of their shared heartbeat. Their journey shows that family doesn't always mean sameness. Sometimes it means growing apart while still staying connected. Like siblings who take different routes in life but still meet at the dinner table, their bond lives on. In food and language, in laughter, and in the way they see each other not as strangers, but as reflections. In a world often divided by race, politics, and pride, their story is a quiet lesson in balance. It tells us that progress doesn't require forgetting where you came from. It just means carrying those roots wherever you go. Because whether it's across a border, a bridge, or an ocean, what truly connects people isn't geography, it's memory, language, and love. And in that sense, Malaysia and Singapore will always be proof that no separation is ever complete, not when history still speaks the same heart. Conclusion. So, are Singaporeans and Malaysians related? Yes, not just by geography, but by something far deeper and far more human. They're connected through centuries of shared history, language, faith, and food. They're bound by the same laughter that echoes through kopitiams, the same love for spicy sambal, and the same family traditions passed down from their ancestors who once lived without borders. They may playfully argue about who makes the better nasi lemak, whose football team is stronger, or whose skyline shines brighter. But beneath the teasing lies an unspoken truth. They are two branches of the same family tree. One chose progress through structure and innovation. The other found strength in heritage and heart. And like all siblings, they may grow apart, but they never forget where they came from. Because in the end, being related isn't only about ancestry. It's about shared identity, shared memories, and a quiet recognition that your story is also mine. Between Singapore and Malaysia, that bond is alive, not in documents or treaties, but in every conversation, every festival, and every smile that crosses the Causeway. They may stand as two flags today, but their roots are intertwined beneath the same tropical sky. And that's the beautiful truth. No matter how far apart they grow, they'll always reach toward the same sun, together. So, what do you think? Do you believe Singaporeans and Malaysians are still one big family at heart, or have the years truly set them apart? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. And if this video opened your eyes to their shared story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell because we'll keep exploring more stories that connect nations, cultures, and people in ways you might never expect. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and remember, even when history divides us, humanity always finds a way to bring us back together.